been interesting today has been a shift in the blame game over the deadlock of this deal. For 3 weeks, Boris Johnson and his team have maintained we do want a new deal, but it's the EU's fault for not meeting us halfway, for not shifting on the backstop. Today, what we've seen is a shift where they've said, actually, it's MPs like Philip Hammond and all the anti-no deal brigade who have convinced the EU that Parliament will stop a no-deal Brexit and essentially handing the power over to the EU. Here's the story of the day so far.
Why would no deal be a betrayal?
It's 3 weeks to the day that Philip Hammond resigned and took his place on the backbenches. And today the former Chancellor told the current Prime Minister and the world what he thinks of no-deal Brexit.
Well, leaving the EU without a deal would be just as much a betrayal of the referendum result as not leaving at all. To set the bar for negotiations so high that we inevitably leave without a deal would be a betrayal. And the Prime Minister said he would get a deal, and we want to see him deliver that deal.
He insisted if Number 10 press on with no deal, he was confident the means exist to block it. When Mr Hammond quit his job at Number 11, the question was when, not if he was going to speak out. And so the response from Number 10 today has been immediate and aggressive. One source inside accusing him of wanting to, quote, cancel the 2016 referendum. The Prime Minister's team appear to not only have been ready and waiting for the former Chancellor's intervention, but now appear to be using it to blame him and his fellow anti-no deal MPs for the deadlock with the EU. In a Facebook Live event here today, the Prime Minister spoke of a, quote, terrible kind of collaboration, which he said was going on between, quote, people who think they can block Brexit in Parliament and our European friends. He added, we need our European friends to compromise. The more they think there's a chance that Brexit can be blocked in Parliament, the more adamant they are in sticking to their position. And the blue-on-blue attacks continued, with Number 10 replying to Mr Hammond by sending a minister into the TV studios.
His job was to prepare the Treasury and the country to face the eventuality of no deal. I remember in the 2017 budget, he set billions aside to prepare for no deal. He expressly said that. You can look at his speeches. And now he's on the backbenches. He's actually saying the complete opposite of what he was meant to prepare for. And I would say this, I think the fact that we're in the situation we're in, the fact that we missed the deadline, shows that Mr Hammond wasn't very effective at preparing us for no deal.
But it's not just a fight with a former Chancellor the government has on its hands. Last night, House of Commons Speaker John Bercow said he will, quote, fight with every breath to stop the Prime Minister closing Parliament to push through no deal. He was less talkative when we caught up with him today. In Berlin this afternoon, there was a reminder of how close to compromise or capitulation the EU are. While meeting the Lithuanian President, Angela Merkel said they want a withdrawal that will yield a close partnership between Britain and the EU member states. In other words, we're not budging. Downing Street still insists they do want a deal with the EU. But today we got an insight into the blame game that could lie ahead if no-deal Brexit happens come October 31st.
Now, the House of Commons Speaker, John Bercow, has already declared he doesn't think that suspending Parliament to force through a no-deal Brexit would be possible. But today, he appeared to go one step further when answering a question at the Edinburgh Fringe from our Scotland correspondent, Kieran Jenkins. Well, Kieran joins us now from Edinburgh. Kieran.
Yes, Cathy, well, if there's even the remotest possibility that Boris Johnson could suspend Parliament to get a no-deal Brexit through, he will have to get it past John Bercow first. And the Speaker of the House of Commons is here in Edinburgh with his own show at the Fringe for 2 days. Yesterday, as you heard in Paul's report, he said he intends to fight suspending Parliament with every breath in his body. But you also saw how elusive he is. He rarely gives interviews or rarely subjects himself to media scrutiny. So today we went along to his show and managed to get a question to him. And if anything, he went further. He said he was absolutely certain that Parliament would not be shut down to get a no-deal Brexit through. He categorically ruled it out in as many words, saying it simply will not happen. Now, we also asked him the burning question, which is, how will he stop it? That he did not say, but he suggested that if there was a move to suspend Parliament, there could be massive public outcry and lengthy legal cases. Now, this sets up a potentially explosive showdown with the government in the autumn, if that is indeed the path they choose, because John Bercow, of course, has enormous power to shape the path of Brexit through Parliament. And if shutting it down is what Boris Johnson decides he wants to do, then today John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, has said categorically, absolutely, certainly not.
Kieran, thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke to Alberto Costa, who's one of more than 20 Conservative MPs who co-signed a letter with Philip Hammond to the Prime Minister, warning Mr Johnson not to pursue no deal. And I began by asking him how he would stop that from happening if the Prime Minister failed to take heed of that letter.
I don't think the Prime Minister is going to ignore the letter. And it's not a question of stopping no deal. It's about helping the Prime Minister get the right deal that he can pass in the House of Commons. Let's remember, Cathy, both the Prime Minister and I voted for the withdrawal agreement.
Yes, but that agreement is now dead, and so you've got to come up with an alternative. You're not going to be able to come up with an alternative before October the 31st. So how do you in Parliament block no deal?
The Prime Minister himself rightly said that there's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance of no deal, which means he wants a deal. And I agree with the Prime Minister. I want a deal, not least because it's the only way of guaranteeing the protection of 1.3 million British citizens' rights. If we leave on no deal, what that actually means, Cathy, is that for some of your listeners, families and friends, the 1.3 million British citizens that live and work in the EU, if we leave on no deal, their rights are abruptly and immediately terminated.
Boris Johnson has discarded that deal. The EU and Boris Johnson are not talking. So I just want one practical suggestion from you about how you will now block no deal, given that that is what the government is now preparing for.
Cathy, this is about helping the Prime Minister get the deal that we all want.
Yes, but I'm suggesting to you that that's not going to happen because the withdrawal agreement has been declared dead by Boris Johnson. The EU isn't opening conversations. So how do you block no deal? I just want one idea of how you block no deal.
I met with Michel Barnier 3 weeks ago, and I will be meeting with Michel Barnier again towards the end of October. I led an emergency task force on citizens' rights. We're not playing games here, Cathy. We're talking about the rights of 5 million people, 3.6 million EU nationals living and working in the UK, and 1.3 million British citizens resident in the EU.
So I'm going to suggest to you one way you can stop that happening, which is, as a last resort, you back a no-confidence motion in the Prime Minister. Are you prepared to do that? Because I'm saying to you, you've written this letter. Are you prepared to make that extra step?
You've asked me how we can prevent no deal. Well, the way we prevent it is by the government presenting legislation prior to our departure from the EU, guaranteeing the rights of EU nationals in the UK, and by doing that, protecting the rights of British citizens in the EU.
But I'm asking you a really straight question. If you don't get that, and you don't get the deal, will you, as a last resort, back a no-confidence motion in the Prime Minister, yes or no?
Well, if the Prime Minister himself has said it's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, then let's be realistic about this, Cathy. It means that he's going to be bringing back a deal to the House of Commons. And I bet...
Do you really believe that?
Yes, I do. And when he does bring it back, there may be some hard Brexiteers that won't vote for it, but I bet there'll be 30 or 40 Labour MPs that will. And the 4th time round, that deal will get through the House of Commons.
Do you think you're a very credulous person?
Well, that's for your viewers to make up their mind, Cathy. What I can say is this. You know that I've been championing the most serious of issues, which is the rights of individual people. They should never have been put on the negotiating table in the first place.
Alberto Costa, thank you very much.
Thank you.